Welcome back to another edition of Tech Call. Don't forget to subscribe to Tech Call, the newsletter on FreightWaves.com if you haven't already. Today we welcome back the one and only Guru Rao, CEO at NewViz. Welcome back to the show, Guru.
Thanks, Mary. Appreciate it. Great to be here again.
I'm excited for today. As we all know, because we can't go more than like 5 seconds in the supply chain world without AI like beaming down on us. You guys actually took the next leap into the AI world, and you guys actually have an AI assistant with honestly probably the coolest name for any AI assistant. Like, who needs Alexa and Siri? You guys have Vizzard, which I love it so much. Like, just I need everybody to be that. But your assistant specifically is tailored towards last mile logistics. Do you kind of mind breaking down how that works and kind of what the goal is of Vizzard and basically why it's the coolest name AI assistant ever?
No, thanks, Mary. Again, AI is, even though it's been talked about a lot in the recent past to great extent, it's not a new phenomenon, right? And, just to think that it's started way back in the 50s, people would be surprised when they hear that, right? So, AI has been in the technology world for a long time in different, shapes and forms. And obviously, the ability of what it can do has exponentially increased in the recent, because of recent innovations with capacity in terms of, you know, computational capacity and all that. So we at NewWiz, we have never looked at AI as just a pure from a hype, technology hype standpoint, but looked at it always from what can it do for our business, our customers, right? What problems can it solve? How can it help? So we've always looked at it from that angle, and we've used different uh, shapes and forms of AI in different use cases across our platform. And now, what one of the areas in logistics is, especially in the last mile, the challenge to solve is the problem of optimization, right? And optimization is not really a one thing. It is many things depending on the use case, depending on the data set, depending on the environment that you operate in. And we have always had these algorithms trying to figure out the solutions for different use cases like that. And then the problem is now it's very data dependent, right? What algorithms, what parameters you use for optimization is very dependent on the data. I'll give you an example. An optimization that works for delivering in hyper local area like Manhattan, right, where you have very dense delivery locations and deliveries, is not going to work for over the road, maybe 2 day delivery kind of scenarios, right? They're completely different, and the data is different, and how you look at it is different. So, and for us, we have customers working in all of those different environments, and instead of telling them, hey, try this, and then if it doesn't work, try this, and now you see what is the best solution, we thought AI is the best tool to be able to make that decision because it can do it fast, right? It can do it and come back with the best result. So that's it's I would see this as a next iteration of our AI journey, not necessarily starting point of our AI journey.
I like that it's the next iteration because, like you said, it's been around for a while. It's just I feel like every couple years it goes through like a slight rebranding. It was machine learning before, and it was just kind of all encompassing data analytics before that, and so I like that this is just kind of that next step in that journey because it's really, at least in my opinion, it's all about kind of how you use it and how you make it work for you. Because honestly, you're going to get out of it what you put into it. And if you're willing to put in, a sizable amount of work and really kind of coach it through what you want it to do and say, here's what I'm expecting from you from the AI, you really will get out of it a good product. And then same with if you're like, okay, well, I'm just going to put this system in place and hope for the best. Like, that's not really, you're not going to get the maximum that you could out of it. And you're leaving a lot of, potential cost savings or analysis or anything. You're just leaving it on the table. And I think that that's really gonna kind of be that differentiator here in the next few years, is who's effectively using it and who just got it because they were supposed to get it, you know?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Makes sense.
So, you guys have so what basically inspired you to create this AI assistant? Because you could have done 700 million different things, but there had to be something that made you guys go, hold on, our customers need this. And this is actually something that we can get a lot of value out of. So yeah, what was kind of that final thing that made you guys go, this is what we want to do?
Yeah, no, like I said, we are fortunate to work with many different types of companies operating in the last mile space, be it shippers on one end or carriers on the other end, involved in different types of business lines, whether it's final mile, how home delivery, B2B deliveries, pick up and drop courier kind of business scenarios, right? So we have customers doing all of those. So obviously, as a platform, our optimization capabilities, like I said before, has to be different for each of these stakeholders and type of businesses. And more what we started to see is, especially in the carrier space, because of the world we live in today, in the last, at least in the last 2 years, where the logistics freight industry is going through a great pain. On the carrier world, everybody's, carriers are doing all kinds of different things which they weren't involved in previously, right? Because business is hard to get. So they want to get whatever business comes their way. And each type of business brings its own challenges in terms of how you operate, right? The one model that you used for one business line may not necessarily work for another shipper of a bit different business line, right? So that is the environment more and more what we see our customers live in, the carriers, LSPs especially. So when we are when they're using our platform, they have to constantly go and keep changing things. Okay, I'm running for this customer, so I got to use this model, these parameters and whatever else. Now, okay, I got to go do this for these, right? So even though you are leveraging technology, you're still relying on people to tell the technology what you are working on and what you want it to do, right? So that was the biggest challenge we saw consistently. So it was taking our customers' time, and it was taking our time to support our customers, encouraging them, educating them on all the different ways they can use the platform. So that's the impetus for us to think about, hey, there should be a better way, right? We are doing all these things. At the end of the day, we have all these capabilities, but can I build another layer in front of it that intelligently figures that out and eliminates that human interference in the front, and does it faster and better, right? So that was kind of the, again, like I said, our exposure to all of these different types of customers involved in different types of businesses, helped us to think about this and come up with this solution.
I think that is a very important part, because a lot of people who do serve as an intermediary, whether it's a freight broker, 3PL, 4PL, heaven forbid one customer or all the customers have the same requirements.
Oh,
Heaven
yeah.
forbid that like if you could just get two
We
that
all
had the
wish,
same
right.
rules, that's a dream. But no, it is a thing that every customer has their own rules and choices and routing guides and everything else that, if I'm sitting there and I'm working across maybe like 6 or 7 different accounts, like, I can't just say, "Okay, well, in the mornings I work on customer A, in the afternoon I work on customer B, and around lunchtime I work on customer C." Like, you can't do that, because you always have to be going and you have to be servicing all these accounts. You can't just say, "Oh, a driver didn't show up, or we need to get this load booked." Well, I already finished customer A segment today. And that's just a lot to constantly remember while you're switching between all these different customers, because um, you don't wanna make a mistake or forget to do something. Because I know we had a customer, back in the day, that they needed approval. There had to be 2 people that approved any change to a load. And so whether that was, a pricing change or an accessorial or anything that changed on that load, we had to get approval for, but that was one customer. And so, and if you didn't, they got super mad and like threw a fit, and it was a whole ordeal that took like weeks to smooth over. So to be if that was one that you were on, you had to remember that versus the 7 others that had different like thresholds of you had to let them know when it was a $50 change or if it was a change destination or something like that. And I feel like that having that kind of assistant there to be like, hey, this is this person. Did you ask this? Did you do this? Like, did you follow these parameters for this customer? Just as kind of like a reminder. So that way your customer is getting what they require. And then they're also feeling like, they're being serviced to the level that they would like to be serviced.
Yep. No, absolutely. Absolutely. Yep.
So when it came to taking this, when it came to kind of building this wizard and this little, the Vizzard, I'm gonna call him by his name. I'm gonna call it by its name. When it came to building Vizzard with the coolest name, which by the way, whoever came up with that name, 10 across the board, tens across the
So the
board.
just thing is, we have new Viz, right? We have Viz in our name. We always thought about our people as wizards. We always look at the software from the lens of people who, build it, who implement it, not necessarily technology for the sake of technology. So we always thought we are the wizards taking technology to our customers. Now with AI, right? Obviously, we're trying to, make humans better, right? So what better way to than to say it's a AI driven wizard?
I love it. I love it. I think that's I like that you didn't have to come up with something else. It's just kind of like an extension of who you guys are, which is ultimately the goal of it. Um so when you guys sat down and said, "Okay, we're going to build this AI assistant," and you have everything to look at, everything from route optimization to basically all the components of a supply chain. What about last mile made you go, "This is it"? Was it easier to do it? Was it easier to implement in last mile, or did you just see it having the biggest impact there?
Yeah. So again, our whole life is on building products for last mile, right? That's where we operate. Obviously, we are not going to go out of our area and try to build something in a completely different space just because we can do it, right? So that is one, that's where we operate. And the second point is to your question. It's the most impactful, exactly what you said, mainly because last mile is the most complex business area, right? You are dealing with the thousands and millions of deliveries that are happening in real time, right? It is humanly impossible for you to look at all of these different permutations and combinations. And like we earlier said, you're operating in an environment where you have to deal with 100 different types of businesses, 100 types of different use cases and all that. And on top of it, put all these millions of data points. So that is where technology like AI can make a huge impact, because you have huge amount of data. And the second part of it is the data is good because we are generating the data. We are acting on the data that we are generating and not relying on somebody else's data, right? Because we are also an execution system. So with that, we thought the impact and creating that, instead of spend a human spending like 8 hours a day, we can do that in 2 minutes, and much better, because technology can look at all of that in a much better way, right? So because of that impact, what we thought, and especially the optimization is one key area which is goes to the heart of saving, right? Which is everybody's goal today, right? So with all of those considered, that's where, of course, we use AI in different areas of our platform as well, in terms of making sure the addresses are correct, and intelligently figuring out what is the right address if it is supposed to be wrong, things like that. And optimization is one of the key areas, and it has the most impact for any of our customers businesses.
I think also because there's been, I mean, even in the last 3, 4 years, the amount of last mile, like just the sheer amount of last mile businesses has grown I don't even think there is a measurable way to count it, but it's just growing so quickly, and I don't see that stopping anytime soon, just because that's the kind of the nature of how consumers have been, and everything should be able to get delivered, whether it's, a T-shirt or entire bedroom furniture. So I think that, it's just kind of poised to come in at the right time and say, "Hey, last mile, we're growing, but we can make it better." Because typically, if I'm a shipper that does handle last mile deliveries, I have a there's just the sheer volume of it is higher than just straight B2B businesses. Because for example, if I'm shipping grain to someone to make cereal, I'm going from a dock to a dock. There's very little there's very little extra things there. Whereas last mile, okay, well, is it an apartment? Is it a house? Is it can I park on the street? Can the roads getting to that residential area, can that handle a large truck? Like, because you'll see some of those like county bridges or some of those in less urban areas, you'll have some of those bridges that have a weight limit that you can't drive a semi truck on it. So then how to get a box truck on there but still maximize my deliveries? And I think that that's where this solution really comes in to say, hey, all those insane parameters you have to deal with on a day to day, we got you. Say less.
Yep. No, absolutely. No.
Um, so Um, when it came to kind of making sure this was a solution for every industry, was that like next to impossible? Because obviously, if you have food manufacturers versus furniture manufacturers, that's a lot of different parameters. So, is it just kind of you get into like what you put into the AI, you kind of can figure out, or were you guys like, where do we even start trying to define parameters within each industry?
No, absolutely. I think that's a key. AI, though, even though it cannot do it, we are not in the world of general AI yet, right? We are way, way, way. It's way far ahead in terms of the capabilities. So what we are building are is still in the scope of the narrow AI, which is use case specific AI, right? It can only do what you design it, what you build it to do, right? It cannot just go and figure it out on its own, not yet, right? So with that in said, we focus on specific industry verticals as a platform solution, with that understanding that we cannot be a solution for everybody, like you said, right? Because everybody has nuances, each industry vertical has its own challenges and things we need to deal with. So we created the solution for the customer segments that we serve, right? On the shippers and the carriers within the specific verticals that we operate in, like healthcare, auto parts, food distribution, and general logistics, the home prescription delivery or in our delivery kind of scenarios, right? So we kind of narrowed down those use cases. We understand our profiles of our customers, and then the solution is specifically built for those customers, for those use cases.
I think that that's a kind of smart way to approach it is you stick with what you guys are already good at and what you know that you can handle. Because that way, as you're rolling it out and testing it, if you do come across that error, or if you do come across a bump in the road or maybe a glitch in and like obviously in test, because if I've said it once, I've said it a million times. Always test your software before you put it into production. Don't just roll it out there. But I think that's really helpful because if you do come across some of those areas or maybe a blind spot you didn't think of, you're already operating within your wheelhouse. So the ability for you to fix it and like obviously recover that load, but still learn from it, you get that, you just kind of get that right away. And your customer in theory doesn't really notice that there has been a change because because you're already sticking with what you're good at. So any failure, any issues, you in theory already dealt with before and you can recover them really easily.
No, you're right. That's why I said it's a next iteration, and the next iteration is coming right behind it, and so on and so forth. Right, and iterations is never going to stop because the technology capabilities are going to evolve, much faster pace, and we are here, and after 12 years of since we started, and we still put something into production every day, right? It's never going to change. right? That is the nature we live, of technology that we operate in, and I think that is going to be the case for quite some time.
So when it comes to that next iteration that you've talked about, it doesn't have to be with you guys, just the next iteration of AI and last mile logistics. What do you see kind of being either whether it's a trend or a huge development or even something personally that you would like to see happen, just kind of within this space, let's say in the next 3 to 5 years? What are some things that you're like, this is going to be cool?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of scope. We are barely touching the surface in terms of gaining efficiencies out of in the system, right? Some of the tools that, and you'll be surprised. You still, even the technology penetration in the logistics space is not where it should be, right? And there's a long way to go, but within the next 3, 4, 5 years, there's huge opportunity to create what we started to call an autonomous delivery ecosystem, right? And may or the autonomous vehicles may or may not be part of that, right? Hopefully they will be, but at least in some segment of logistics, maybe the long haul segment may be a good candidate before we get into the true hyper local multi stop delivery kind of scenario. It's coming, but it might take a little longer, right? But with or without that, we have an opportunity to create, using technology, an autonomous delivery ecosystem where technology can take care of all the things that happens around, from order capture to bringing it in to planning and optimizing it to doling it out to different people and executing it, and also when exceptions happen, bringing that back into the ecosystem and then figuring out how that exceptions can be handled automatically without any human intervention. So that is not a pipe dream, right? That can happen, right? There a technology exists today to enable that, and I think that is where we kind of, as a technology, we think about every day how we can enable that, that ecosystem that is going to be coming, hopefully in the next 3, 5 years as we mature. And I think that's at least from our side, that's where we are thinking, and that's where we are headed.
The to have deliveries go basically, like, from the shipper to the last mile with basically no interaction is really cool, but also like, "What?" Because it's just something that it seems like such like a difficult thing to accomplish, but then if you look at what you have now, aside from obviously the exceptions and the ones that break and all of the you're always gonna have those problem children that you're always gonna need someone just to step in and say, "Okay, we can fix this," but it's not they're the exceptions, they're always gonna be there, but for 99% of everything else, I mean, if you look at it now, a lot of them already go with very little interaction as is, maybe assigning a carrier to it or, maybe trying to find the right pricing. But at the same time, if you build that up enough and you get your pricing agreements in place, you could potentially just not have to deal with it. And that would be really cool. And it seems like it would be so far off, but when you look at kind of how everything is now, it's really not, you know?
No, it's definitely technology is not the bottleneck here. It's more about the standardization of processes and the business processes, right? That's where because you want to intervene, and because you don't have any rules, you don't have any preset way to operate, right? Technology cannot operate if you don't have rules, right? So people get into it because they think they're smarter, they can cut corners here and make some things there, but they don't understand the you can do that if you're dealing with tens and hundreds of transactions, but you're dealing with millions of transactions, and how many people can you put to do this, right? So that is where I think standardization of processes will help. And obviously the technology, like I said, it's there and it will continue to evolve to get us there.
Well, I'm excited for the future of kind of how last mile logistics evolves because it's ripe for some heavy evolution. But we have recently changed our final question on the show here. And Guru, we've been on before, so we've heard your dad jokes. We know where you stand on hot dogs and sandwiches. So this time If you could build a house out of any food, what would it be?
Interesting. If I could build a house with any food. Um, okay, I think if I can, I'll take two. Like if I'm building a house and with food, I would rather build it with something that I like and I enjoy. So two of my favorite food items are coffee and chocolate. Right?
Ooh.
I can drink coffee any time of the day. I will never say no to coffee. And if anything has coconut in it, you got me there, right? So those are two of my favorite food items. I would find a way to build a house with them, and also I think they are good complementary food items, right? They take away some of the strong you know uh, uh, tastes of the others, and they go well with each other. And I would rather have a house with that than something that I mean, I don't enjoy every day, every minute.
Whereas it's like a house of like a gingerbread cookie. Like, no, we don't need that. I think a house of coffee would smell amazing. It would
Okay.
just smell like a
Yeah,
coffee shop
and then you
24/7.
throw in coconut on top of it. It'll kind of bring down
Mhm.
that you're building a house with coffee that might get too much. So the coconut will kind of
Yeah.
complement that and bring it down. Yeah, from a
I love it. I would love to see a coconut coffee house. So thank so thank you so much for joining us. If anyone has any questions on where they can maybe get a coconut coffee house or how to hang out with Vizzard themselves, where can they find you outside the show?
Yeah, they can always find you at newiz.com and reach us at info@newiz.com. And yeah, we'll love to engage with anybody who wants to talk last mile with us.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Mary. Appreciate it.
You can find Check Call the Podcast anywhere you get your podcasts like Apple Podcast and Spotify. Need more running a nope, not running a nice. Don't forget to check out the other incredible FreightWaves shows. See you on the internet.